Happiness isn't what you think it is. This conversation will rewire the way you think about joy, pain, success, and what really makes a meaningful life. Here is author of The Fun Habit, Mike Rucker.
What about when there's bad times, though? Before you released your book, lost your younger brother, why keep writing this book?
Being happy isn't an appropriate emotional response. Your body needs that space to be able to heal. But reminding yourself that will be waiting for you when you are willing to accept it. If you wallow and you kind of ruminate on how bad your situation is, that can really become addictive, because that kind of despair also is something that if we don't remind ourselves that there is a way out, we can get stuck in it. Why happiness can be problematic.
Mike, for those who are unfamiliar with who you are, why should they listen?
Well, with regards to this podcast specifically, I think what we'll get into is some of my academic work with regards to positive psychology. As a researcher, I've looked at the construct of fun and juxtaposed that to happiness, because a lot of what we've learned about happiness over the last couple of decades, we found out we got a lot of things wrong. And so it's been a fun journey to kind of understand what we've gotten wrong with regards to happiness. And then also if some of the things that we've been telling people to do have needed a tune up, what could those be? And so I've enjoyed, looking into that stuff, especially because I know, as a lot of us try to pursue happiness, knowing, what is helpful and what is not, and sharing that it's been a fun journey.
Yeah. So are you saying kids aren't the only one who are allowed to have fun?
That's right.
But to think as happy as an end goal, I feel like that's unrealistic, because we're always going to be looking for what's next. Like, let's say, if I get this job, I will be happy. But then you get the job, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, I need to get a promotion. You get that promotion, and then you think the same thing. So like, how can someone with that mindset, because I feel like that's our fleshly desire as humans that we all have, work on that?
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring that up, because it's actually a shortcut to what we've learned. And that is that it was never meant to be an outcome, right? I meant generally happiness, and the folks that are happy, those are a byproduct of good decisions. And those decisions are a couple of things kind of at the most highest level, right? Since we only have 30 minutes. One is that not moving the goalpost on you. So the phenomena that you just described is fairly well known now, especially if you look at the research in this area. It tends to be called the hedonic treadmill. And so what we know is that, whether you want to kind of hone in on the neuroscience, dopamine as a tool for getting things done, or at a more philosophical level that, a lot of us are driven by meritocracy, that we want like that next promotion, like you said, or the next shiny thing. The folks that are always kind of chasing that never find satisfaction actually in the moment, right? And so for the folks that are able to circumvent that circuit and be like, this job that I'm doing right now, I'm going to mindfully enjoy the components of it by my own design. And that can be anything, right? It generally is 3 different things, but it really can be anything. Is it the people that you're doing it with? Is it actually enjoyment in the activity of the work that you're doing? Or is it the environment that you're in, right? And so those things, if you can be mindful about what you're doing in that present moment, and that's what brings you joy, there is lasting happiness in that. But you're never looking at it. You're never looking in the rearview mirror and asking yourself, was I happy in that moment? Because what we found is that folks that ruminate on that question all the time, one, it zaps the energy for your ability to do that in the first place, right? And because you're now not doing the thing that brings you that lasting joy, you're actually thinking about it. And then 2, it's moving the goalpost, right? Because we do know that we adapt to things, if they are sort of extrinsically motivated. But when we don't do that, when we're like, okay, I'm going to keep the goalposts here and I'm going to be very grateful for the things that I have, then the things that do come your way just add to that gratitude, rather than always feeling like you're in this, modus operandi of lack. Like, okay, well, I got the thing, but now I need to get the next thing because I've already gotten this thing.
So for those who don't have that kind of mindset of thinking like, I need to find joy in at least once a day, what is a step that they can do to help with that? You know, because I mean, like, if you just say, just try to work on this every day, I feel like it might be overwhelming. But if you say, hey, work on this one thing, and then that'll start to trickle things for you.
Yeah, I think that is one, being deliberate about what you choose to do, right? And so I think most of us can find joy as long as we're deliberately making those choices. Like, so it could be spending time with a friend. It could be approaching your work in a particular way. It could be doing something nice for other people. I mean, there's a huge body of research. Something as simple as buying coffee for someone, as trite as that sounds, can have ripple effects. And people often underestimate the power that something like that has, right? Like, when we don't actually engage in the act, a lot of times we'll be like, well, I'd be out $2 and I don't even know the person behind me. Like, how could that be?
At Juliant, we're with you at every milestone, and your brightest dreams never have to fade. At Juliant, we help you shine. That's brighter banking. Juliant Federal Credit Union.
But yet there seems to be this systemic effect of, wow, that was really cool, especially if it's somebody that you don't know, right? Because when you do it and then you want recognition, that's still kind of self-absorbed, right? Like, yeah, everyone feels good. And I'm not suggesting that you don't do that. You know, I'm part of a giving circle where you very much want that to be like an upward spiral where we're celebrating, you know, with the folks that benefit from it. But when you do it and don't expect anything back, that can be, you know, that moment of joy that you're looking for. And so figuring out, you know, what that is and making it really easy, like creating the low bar. In the book, The Fun Habit, you know, the reason that we're sitting here together, I talk about dispositional gratitude, and that has 3 components, right? One is an appreciation for that connection that you have. So that could be, you know, I know you recently got engaged. You're not married yet, correct?
No, next
congrats,
year.
Congrats on the engagement. So it could be that connection with the joyful relationship that you have with the person you're doing the thing with. Or if you're an introvert, it could just be that connection with the activity you have. So if you're a spiritual person, you know, it could be that connection to source or God. If you're a dancer, it could be that love affair you have with the craft of dancing. Whatever it is, it's important to get outside of yourself and know that you're connected to the thing. The second is an appreciation for the fact that most of these simple pleasures are really easily accessible. So, you know, getting to have, you know, time with someone that you love, you can do that anywhere. It's free, right? And, you know, most activities that we engage in are generally easily accessible, you know, if we make them that way. Like, you know, a pickleball game or going to see comedy. You know, the bar is usually a lot lower than we think. And then the last piece is that all of these things are abundant, because I think especially in today's world, we're bombarded, right, by all this bad news, and we're reminded that horrible things happen, because they do. That's the nature of the world that we live in, right? That the tragedy that's happened in Texas this last week. I mean, those things can really weigh you down. Why are all of these really painful things happening to folks? But the truth is that there's an abundant of amazing, really powerful, joyful things accessible to all of us, you know, as abundant as these painful things are. Yet, because of, you know, depending on what philosophy you kind of prescribe to, the reasons why we might have a predisposition to think about the bad. But if we mindfully think about all of the good things and the fact that they are all around us, we're just not reminded about them as much as the bad things, can be really helpful, because then we wake up the next day looking for those things and they become really accessible, rather than feeling like, you know, we got to go out searching for them.
Yeah. What about when there's bad times though? Like, what if before you released your book, lost your younger brother, you know, I mean, I feel like someone else would have just easily said, why would I keep writing this book? The Fun Habit, you know, it's like, where I feel like there's no fun now. I mean, just because something traumatic and, you know, terrible happened. So like, what about someone who's going through that? Like, how did you go through it? And then how can someone else get out of?
Yeah. So that's, in the book, that's where I really do get into the science. I think oftentimes we conflate emotional states with the ability to have an action-oriented sort of mindset, right? And so there are a couple of things to unpack there, especially looping back to like why happiness can be problematic, right? So if we try to will ourselves back to a joyful state in that, right? Especially if we feel optimistic or we feel like, you know, we need to make some sort of sense out of things that are really chaotic. I mean, you know, he unexpectedly passed away from a pulmonary embolism, right? None of us could sort of fit, you know, predetermine that would happen. So it surprised us. And yet, because of my predisposition to optimism, I was like, you know what? I'm going to will myself out of this. Like, you know, it sucks, but, you know, my brother would want me to be happy again. You know, like, I'll figure this out. And the thing is, we know if we had that kind of Pollyanna approach that most people, you know, not all people, but a significant amount of people will actually get even more unhappy, right? Because you need time to be able to process those bad things that have happened to you. And so being happy isn't an appropriate emotional response. Your body needs that space to be able to heal. But enjoying yourself, reminding yourself, going back to, you know, that dispositional gratitude, that will be waiting for you when you are, you know, willing to accept it, or finding it intermittently throughout your day so you can still mourn, you know, whatever that change was, whether it was a divorce or a job loss or the loss of a loved one. Being able to remind yourself, well, joy is still there. Like whether that's going out to see comedy or enjoying the friendship, you know, that you have with a friend or whatever it may be, that reminder, indexing those joyful moments are what's going to pull you out of that dark space. But if you don't do it, if you wallow, right, and you kind of ruminate on how bad your situation is, then you know, that can really become addictive, because, you know, that kind of despair also is something that if we don't remind ourselves that there is a way out, we can get stuck in it.
Mm-hmm.